The Fateful Gamble, A Summer of Steel, June 1941. Adolf Hitler, Führer of Nazi Germany, made a momentous decision. He would invade the Soviet Union. This was Operation Barbarossa. Hitler believed the Soviet regime was weak. He thought it would crumble like a house of cards. The vastness of Russia and the resilience of its people were overlooked. The die was cast for a conflict of unimaginable scale and brutality. German armies massed on the Soviet border. Tanks, artillery, and infantry prepared for the onslaught. Hitler promised his generals a campaign lasting mere weeks. The goal was to destroy the Red Army before winter. Lebensraum, or living space for the German people, was the ultimate prize. The rich agricultural lands of Ukraine beckoned. The oil fields of the Caucasus were vital for the German war machine. This was more than a military campaign. It was a crusade. The pact with Stalin, the Molotov-Ribbentrop non-aggression pact, was now worthless paper. It had allowed him to conquer Poland and Western Europe without a two-front war. Now, he felt secure enough to turn east. The Wehrmacht was considered invincible. It had swept through Poland, France, and the Balkans with terrifying efficiency. The invasion was set for June 22nd. Stalin had received numerous warnings but dismissed them, believing Hitler would not risk a war on two fronts. Arrogance before the fall, underestimating the bear. German military planners exuded an astonishing level of overconfidence. They viewed the Soviet Union as a primitive, disorganized state. The Red Army, they believed, was poorly led and ill-equipped. The purges of the 1930s had decimated the Soviet officer corps. This led the Germans to assume a swift and decisive victory. They expected the Soviet system to collapse under the first heavy blows. This assessment was dangerously flawed. The German high command seriously underestimated Soviet industrial strength. Factories east of the Ural Mountains could churn out vast quantities of tanks, aircraft, and artillery. The T-34 tank, for example, came as a nasty surprise to German panzer crews. Intelligence failures also plagued the German preparations. The vast reserves of manpower the Soviet Union could call upon were not fully appreciated. This underestimation of Soviet resolve was a critical error. Barbarossa unleashed. A tide of destruction. On June 22, 1941, at 3:15 a.m., the storm broke. Over 3 million German soldiers, along with Allied troops, surged across the Soviet border. The invasion front stretched for nearly 2,900 kilometers. It was the largest land invasion in history. Army Group North targeted Leningrad. Army Group Center aimed for Moscow. Army Group South pushed towards Ukraine and the Caucasus. The initial assault was devastating. The Luftwaffe destroyed thousands of Soviet aircraft, many still on the ground. The Red Army was caught completely off guard. German panzer divisions, using blitzkrieg tactics, punched deep into Soviet territory. They created vast encirclements, trapping hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops. The cities of Minsk, Smolensk, and Kiev fell. The scale of the initial German victories was staggering. The brutality of the conflict was evident from the outset. This was not a conventional war. It was an ideological war of extermination. Einsatzgruppen, special SS death squads, followed behind the advancing armies. The civilian population suffered immensely. Despite the stunning early successes, problems began to emerge for the Wehrmacht. The Red Army, though battered, was not broken. Section 4. General Winter's Icy Grip, The Frozen Advance. As autumn 1941 turned to winter, a new and formidable enemy appeared. It was not an army of men, but the brutal Russian winter. German planners had expected victory before its onset. They were catastrophically unprepared. Soldiers lacked adequate winter clothing. Frostbite became rampant, claiming tens of thousands of casualties. German equipment also suffered. Lubricants froze in engines and weapons. Tanks and trucks became immobilized. The cold was a relentless, invisible foe, sapping morale and effectiveness. The German offensive, particularly the drive on Moscow codenamed Operation Typhoon, ground to a halt. The Red Army, on the other hand, was better equipped for winter warfare. Soviet soldiers had warm clothing, and their equipment was designed to function in the cold. The psychological impact of the winter was immense. In early December 1941, the Soviets launched a major counteroffensive around Moscow. The exhausted and freezing German troops were pushed back. The advance on Moscow was stopped. Section 5. Hitler's Hand, Strategic Failures and Missed Opportunities. Adolf Hitler's personal interference in military operations became a significant factor in Germany's failures. He increasingly distrusted his generals. He often overruled their professional advice. His insistence on holding every inch of captured territory, forbidding tactical withdrawals, proved disastrous. This inflexibility led to unnecessary losses, and allowed Soviet forces to encircle and destroy German units. One of the most debated strategic decisions was the diversion of Army Group Center's Panzer armies southward in August 1941. Instead of maintaining the direct thrust towards Moscow, Hitler ordered a shift towards Ukraine. This operation was a tactical success but delayed the advance on Moscow by several crucial weeks. By the time the offensive towards the capital resumed, the autumn rains had begun, followed by the devastating winter. Many historians argue this diversion cost Germany its best chance of capturing Moscow. Hitler's ideological obsessions blinded him to the realities of the situation. Section 6. The Turning Tide, Stalingrad, and the Long Retreat. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought from August 1942 to February 1943, marked a decisive turning point. Hitler became obsessed with capturing the city bearing Stalin's name. He poured troops and resources into the urban meat grinder. The German 6th Army under General Paulus fought its way into the city. The fighting was brutal, street by street, house by house. Soviet defenders, notably the 62nd Army under General Chuikov, fought with incredible tenacity. They turned Stalingrad into a fortress. In November 1942, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus. This was a massive counteroffensive targeting the weaker Romanian and Hungarian armies protecting the German flanks. Soviet armored corps broke through, rapidly encircling the entire German 6th Army in Stalingrad. Hitler forbade Paulus from attempting a breakout. He promised to supply the trapped army by air. This airlift proved a dismal failure. The 6th Army, starving and freezing, was slowly annihilated. In February 1943, the remnants surrendered. It was a catastrophic defeat for Germany, both materially and psychologically. Stalingrad shattered the myth of German invincibility. From this point onwards, Germany was largely on the strategic defensive on the Eastern Front. The tide had irrevocably turned.